Jermaine Foster.
BBC Radio Merseyside.
Time now for my next guest. Now, originally written for her dissertation, Fear of Drowning is described as a journey of discovery and a labour of love, and that is for author and my next guest, Dee Dickens. The book is a poetic exploration of slavery, contemporary black identity and inherited trauma. Welcome to the Upfront show, Dee Dickens. Hi, Dee.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. That description of your book there, it's an exploration of slavery, contemporary black identity and inherited trauma. It sounds like a nice light read, this one.
Yeah, not quite. There are some real moments of brevity in it. There's a poem in there called "When Is It Okay for White People to Use the N-Word?" and it's hilarious. Honestly, the answer being never. But there's some moments of brevity, but I wrote it because I didn't know where I came from. And I went to the International Slavery Museum when I came up to Liverpool. Full disclosure, my husband's a Scouser. He and his family are from Chilwell.
Where are you from?
And I'm from Sussex originally, but I live in Wales now. And I went up to the International Slavery Museum and I couldn't not write this collection after that. It's
a lot to take in, the International Slavery Museum, especially if you kind of never been there before. And did you kind of know what you were going into? I mean, you know it's a slavery museum, but when you get there, you kind of realise this is a slavery museum. Wow.
I mean, especially as a mixed person, because my dad's from Trinidad, my mum's English. Okay, so as a mixed person, I walked into that museum having read about slavery and knowing about slavery and everything that went along with it, but nothing prepares you for the impact that it has on you when you walk through the doors for the first time.
Yeah,
nothing prepares you for that.
Yeah, so many people say that. And, if you're listening to this now and you've never been, especially if you live in the city, you should definitely go and check it out. Just really do. You go and it is like you think you go in with an impression in your head of what you're going to see. But when you're there and it's like in front of you, you just and then putting yourself in people's shoes and putting yourself in people's positions, it is very, very difficult to take.
It was an oil painting that really did for me when I walked in, because it made me really angry. I just wanted to smash everything because it was like you or someone like you owned my family. And that was the starting point, really. So, yeah, a lot of the poetry, especially about my visits, I went twice. First time with my husband and the second time on my own. And most of the poems about my visits there are written in the moment. So they are literally as I'm going around the museum.
For any of our listeners or, who may not be familiar with your writing, Dee, this is your 6th book.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Yep.
Tell us a bit about yourself. I mean, are you a poet by trade? Are they 6 poetry books, or was this the first time trying out this kind of style?
This is my 3rd poetry book. I like to say I'm a poet, so I will die poor. I know there's no money. I write memoirs to pay the bills, and I write poetry because it feeds my soul.
You need to get a poem trending on TikTok, and you'll be set.
Honestly, I have a poem on TikTok at the moment, but which is about a completely different issue. It's about marital coercion, but we won't go into that.
Okay, let's leave that one.
Yes, but I wrote a memoir about my time. I was an absolute cliche and did phone work of a certain variety to pay my way through university. So I wrote about that. I've written a novel and a novella, and 3 poetry collections. So
so you're no stranger to this then.
Right. No.
So is poetry where you feel most comfortable then?
Honestly, yes. I can write prose. I enjoy writing prose. At the moment, I'm writing an intersectionally feminist chick lit book, which is a comedy. But with poetry, I find out not just what I think, but who I am. There's a certain thing about that medium, and that's what my PhD thesis is going to be about as well. So, it's there's a way of accessing yourself that the shorter form of poetry is better at than prose.
I mean, if you were going to think of any topic to kind of base a book of poetry on, or, you know, anything, you probably pick something quite light, probably something, you know, you can dance around, have a few laughs, a few giggles. To go into the transatlantic slave trade, that's a heavy topic, you know.
It is.
How did you kind of go about, you know, I mean, to putting this together? And then when you're putting it together, what kind of impact are you hoping it will have?
I mean, I was very lucky. As you said, I did this as part of my dissertation. I'm 51 now. I didn't go to university till I was 47. And my undergraduate dissertation supervisor was amazing. And she supported me all the way through this. Christina Thatcher, she's just an amazing poet on her own. And we put it together. There were a lot more poems, but some of them ended up in different ones and what have you. So the impact I hope it has is the same sort of impact that Black poets have had on me. I'm talking like people like Kaioshin Gonyi, who has a collection called Kumakanda, which talks about the ritual of becoming a man, but he doesn't do it because he's been transplanted from his native country into Kent. There's people like Rachel Long who write about what it's like to grow up mixed race with a Black family. I write what it's like to grow up mixed race with a white family. So I'm hoping they've had a real impact on me. It made me feel accepted and loved within my own community, and given me doors to open to have a look into the rooms that I hadn't previously looked into, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a poem in there called Hair, and it talks about how I can now go into a Black hairdresser's and have my hair done without being laughed out of the door, because I have very European style hair, even though it's very curly, very kinky, it's dragon hair normally. So I can go in now and they will call my hair European rather than white, and they will do my hair because they recognize actually that I might want to touch base with my culture through the hairstyles, through the braiding that carried rice and gold across the Atlantic in the ships, and so there's poetry about that as well.
So is this kind of like a discovery, you know, thing? Writing this, were you learning a lot more about yourself, and did it kind of encourage you to try and learn a lot more about your ancestry as well?
Absolutely. I found out through this research, and thank you to the International Slavery Museum for all the help they gave me, I found out where my family were from.
Wow.
Where my ancestors were from.
And you never knew that before?
Pinpointed. No, I didn't even know the names of my grandparents, Jermaine.
Oh, wow.
And I do now.
That's
William
amazing.
and Amelia were my grandparents. And I know that slavery for me, the slave trade, it's very close. It was my great grandfather was the last member of my family to be enslaved.
Wow, so close.
And so close. And I never met him. And his legacy is passed down through my father and education and his, do you know what I mean? So I have found out so much. I found out that I'm descended from the Igbo.
From where? Sorry, the reception went
from the Igbo, which is a tribe in Nigeria, from the Yoruba, and my people are poets, and they're lawyers, and they're educated, and to be able to have that link with them, and to see something tangible, and to say, actually, no, I have a long neck, but don't call me a white swan, call me a crowned black crane, because that's the national bird of Nigeria. And I'm trying piece by piece to put it together. That's and amazing. It's a wonderful thing.
That's amazing. So how did the Slavery Museum connect those dots for you then?
They have a lot of paperwork there. It's not just the exhibits. What people don't understand about the place is you can go and you can listen to different kinds of music. You can put in or look up where your family ended up or where you think you're descended from. And for me, it's Trinidad and Tobago. And they will say to you, actually, most of the people who came to Trinidad and Tobago were Yoruba. So you've got a starting point. So they put me in a place where I could go, okay, now let's look further. and finally talking to my father and him actually talking to me, because now apparently I'm an adult. So, and he wouldn't talk to me before about it. So I got to write about all of this stuff in the immediacy of living it all, which was a real gift.
My granddad's the same as that, actually. Now you've said that about your dad. My granddad's the same. He won't talk about, his youth or much of his life before he came and it's so weird. Like, you have to really get it out of him. You got to get him in the right mood. Lately, I've just learned pour whiskey down him, and he can't help himself. But that's what I've had to resort to now. Like, it's
my
so
dad,
bad.
My dad's still in Trinidad, where he's back in Trinidad, and for him it'd be brandy. But I can't do that over Zoom.
Yeah, you gotta feed him a bit of booze to get the stories. No, please carry on.
So then when I was talking about contemporary Black identity, I wanted to touch on the sort of things that happened to me when I was a child. Like I spent part of my life in a very white area. I was in Stratford-upon-Avon when I was at school, and there were like 7 Black people in town, Black kids in town, and I was related to 2 of them. So, and then everybody thought that we were all related. So we used to go around calling each other this.
The worst thing with that is like that somebody will say to you, "Oh, such and such, do you know them?" And then you really want to say no, but then you're related, but so you have to say yes. Oh, I hate that. I've been there too. I hate that.
You do. And you're like, you want to say, no, we're not all the same. We don't all know each other. But you're like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Not only do I know them, that's actually my cousin.
Actually, my cousin. We grew up having baths together. Yeah. It's a thing. So I wrote about that. I wrote about what it was like in the 70s being mixed race with green eyes, and people saying to me, oh, it's okay, you can get away with it because you've got green eyes, and that being instilled into me that I should try and pass. And passing is something I've never wanted to do. And so there was all that then. I've written about the National Front and all that. And the last poem in the collection is a poem called Some Bright Eloquence, and it's my favourite because it talks to a hypothetical Black girl sitting in the corner surrounded by white friends, and it tells her that she shouldn't be ashamed of her hair, she shouldn't be ashamed of her voice, of her body, and she is meant for better things and she should go and take them and be them. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of this collection.
I mean, definitely. It sounds great. And I mean, just talking to you as well, we can hear from your, the personality that you have that, even though I said in the intro that this is going to be, it's a kind of heavy read, you can already tell just from talking to you that there's going to be some lightness in there too. And there's going to be a bit of humour as well. The book is called Fear of Drowning. Where can people pick it up?
They can pick it up from whiskeyandbeards.co.uk.
whiskeyandbeards.co.uk. Is that the only place?
At the moment, yes, because it's literally just on pre-order, but it will be going wider places like Amazon and what have you. But at the moment, it's on pre-order, which means it's on sale if it's pre-order too. It's a bit cheaper for people.
Oh, there we go. The magic word.
Like a bargain.
The magic word, definitely. And what about yourself, Dee? If people want to, you've said this is book number 6. People want to go back and look at some of your past works and keep tabs on what stuff you've got coming in the future. Where can they go to follow up on you?
They can go to Dee Dickens, poet and author on Facebook. They can go to Amazon and just put in Dee Dickens, and my other books will come up on there. And they can follow me on Twitter at The Ponty Poet.
Amazing. Do go and check out the book of poetry. It is called Fear of Drowning, written by our fantastic guest, Dee Dickens. It sounds like a really, really cool read. It's a book that explores slavery, contemporary Black identity and inherited trauma, and also will have some humour in there thrown into. Dee, absolute pleasure having you on the evening show. Thanks for chatting to us. Really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Great guest there, Dee Dickens. Do go and check out her book, Fear of Drowning.